What's up, Sports Talk Detroit? Craig at you again. We're continuing this series of rumored Pistons trades, and this one we are talking about the Washington Wizards. Jerami Grant to Washington. This is the one that the national media is loving writing about because Jerami Grant, he's a DC native, he's from the area, so that would work so good. When does that happen in the NBA? Like, when does that happen? When is it just like, well, that's my hometown? I get that sometimes it happens when your hometown is LA or New York, but even then it doesn't necessarily work out. That's not usually a thing. Teams don't really care where you're from. They just care how good you are. So I understand why the national media wants to see this and they want to cover the story, and it's cool. But let's look at the trade as it's been rumored. And the trade is this. The Washington Wizards get Jerami Grant, and the Detroit Pistons in return receive a first-round pick in 2025. That's the latest one yet. 2025, not 22, not 23, not 24, 2025. Just remember that. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but remember that. They also would get Montrezl Harrell, Rui Hechomora. All right, Rui Hechomora. For some reason, my mouth has a hard time saying Rui. All right, maybe it's because I'm not Australian. Or Raul Neto. That is the throw-in. That's clearly a salary situation there and a point guard. I don't know. Anyways, this is an interesting trade, but not necessarily in a good way. Okay, so you have interesting trades that are in a good way and interesting trades that are not. On the surface, it looks like there's some talent there. You have a first-round draft pick. Montrezl Harrell is a bucket getter, and not by shooting, but he scores the ball wherever he's been. All right, he scores the ball. But here's what I've noticed with Montrezl Harrell throughout his last few years. Whether he's with the Clippers or the Lakers, he disappears in the playoffs. Do you want to know why he disappears in the playoffs? Because he's a matchup nightmare. He's a 6'7" center. That's one problem. Who can't shoot? Now, if he was a 6'7" power forward who could shoot, there we go, combined with what he does. But he can't shoot. He will not ever be able to shoot. It's not in his game. So he becomes a defensive liability because of his height and a spacing liability because of his lack of shooting. Can you get the ball down low to him and he can get you a bucket? Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's overrated or underrated in the NBA today how important that can be to have someone down low that can get you a bucket. But you just prefer for them to also be able to get buckets in other ways or to be a little bit taller. And if they weren't taller, to not play center. So I hope you can understand where I'm coming at with Harrell here. He's kind of an enigma for me. I like him. I've always liked him. But he's always been a better fantasy basketball option than he has been a real NBA on your team option. What about the next one? Rui Hechomora. I know I made the joke about Australian. Obviously, he's not Australian, but when I was thinking of Rui, I was thinking of kangaroo. But anyways, this is just my dumb personality starting to come out. I apologize. But here's the thing about him. There's upside there. There's absolutely upside. When I watch him, when he was coming out of Gonzaga, I believe it was, I thought like that jump shot, a lot of what he did reminded me of Tobias Harris. And that's not a bad thing at all. I mean, Tobias, if you remember, it took him 4 or 5 years to really get acclimated into the league. It wasn't until he came to Detroit that he really developed that jump shot. But the way it looked always looked good. Like, oh yeah, that jump shot one day is going to be silk. And it ended up being, which is fantastic. I think the same thing about Rui. But there's this weird thing going on, and I haven't done any research on this, but he's missed the first 40 games of the year. Now he's been back for a few games, and all that's good, but he's been out for so long. So I'm not really sure what's going on with him and why he missed that 40 games, but that makes me a little leery. And the other thing that creates a problem here is we have Saddiq Bey, that's a 4. Rui would be a 4. So they play the same position. I don't know that I like this. It just doesn't feel right. I'm glad the national media likes it. I don't like the trade. Now there's been rumors that Thomas Bryant could be part of this trade, the center. He's just coming back off his ACL injury. I'm not interested there. A non-athletic 5. He can shoot a little bit. He can stretch the floor. You know, he has a fiery personality, which is kind of cool. I think it would fit in Detroit, but he's not a super athletic guy, at least jumper. I'm just not super interested. Now, if you wanted to throw Daniel Gafford in there, now we talking. But from what Washington's beat writers are saying, like he is not even on the table. No way, not happening. So tell me what you think. Is the Wizards a good opportunity? Personally, I think that so far it's been the worst opportunity. But don't worry, I'm sure we'll put out a video on the Lakers where you'll see that it's even worse. All right, Sports Talk Detroit, thank you so much for watching. Hey, please consider subscribing, especially if you made it to the end of the video. If you made it to the end of the video, you kind of like it. So consider subscribing. Leave a comment below. Do you like this trade with the Wizards? See ya.